Hey guys, it's Elliot with Backyard Sports Media, and I wanted to bring you guys a quick video here today going over my picks for the 2025 NFL regular season awards. The Associated Press put out their 5 nominees for each of these awards yesterday. There's already been some intrigue and some debate surrounding some of these. Some people think there's some guys that got nominated that shouldn't have been, and there's some people that think there are guys who were left off some of these lists that definitely should have been nominated. So this award season is going to be interesting. I think there's several of these awards that are already locked up. I think we know who's going to win. But at the same time, there are several who I think are still up in the air. 50-50, we really don't know who's going to win, including the MVP, obviously the biggest one, the most important one. I think people are still 50-50 on Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. Nobody really knows who's going to win that. And I think no matter which name gets announced, it's probably going to be a surprise to at least some on awards night. So we'll hop right into Defensive Rookie of the Year. We got the nominees of Cooper DeJean, Braden Fisk, Quinyon Mitchell, Chop Robinson, and Jared Verse. So we got the two Eagles, the two Rams, and Chop Robinson. I think for me, looking at this list, comes down to Jared Verse and Quinyon Mitchell. No disrespect to the other guys. The other three had a great season, and there's absolutely a reason they got nominated. But I think the impact that Mitchell and Verse were able to have early on as rookies, and the fact that the Eagles defense and the Rams defense, respectively, were both very high in the league in terms of total team ranks, also looks good on their resume as well. And I think that's not the only thing you want to consider, of course. You want to mainly focus on their individual play, but I think team play is very important. And I think that's something that voters do consider in regards to all of these awards. And so I think when you're trying to decide between these two guys, it's so tough, but for me, it's going to come down to Jared Verse. I think he was the best player on that Rams defense this year. The way he was able to make an impact so early on in his career, I think was super special. And I think he wasn't playing with quite as much talent around him as maybe like a Quinyon Mitchell was. And I know that's not the best reason maybe for picking Jared Verse, but you really are just grasping for straws here between these guys because they are both very deserving Defensive Rookie of the Year candidates. And so you kind of have to start to get into the nitty gritty in terms of the reasoning and trying to separate between these two guys. So for me, it's going to be Jared Verse. I know he didn't have like the most sacks ever or anything like that. I believe just had 4.5 sacks, and even his teammate Braden Fisk had more, fellow rookie. But the impact that he was able to have, and like I said, if you watched the Rams this year, you could tell he was the best player on that defense. So I think he had just a really special season. And so that's going to be my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year here. But I think all these guys had really, really good seasons. I think what Quinyon Mitchell was able to do, I think surprised me. I was high on him coming out of Toledo, but I did not think he would be this good this early. I thought there would be a little bit of a learning curve, coming from a smaller school. Cooper DeJean has played great on the back end, returned punts as well. I think Fisk has surprised just about everybody. I mean, he was a guy who the Rams traded up for and drafted way higher than people were expecting him to go. I mean, a lot of people were expecting Fisk to be maybe a third, fourth round guy even, and he goes at the top of the second round, and the Rams traded up to get him, used a lot of draft capital to get him, and the impact he was able to have this year was very, very, very important for that Rams defense. I think ended up with about 8.5 sacks or something, led the team, I believe led all rookies in sacks. So he obviously had a really, really great year. And of course, Chop Robinson down in Miami as well. Their team wise didn't have as good of a defense and just didn't have as good of a season overall, missing the playoffs down in Miami. But he had a great individual season, and he's an athletic freak, and I'm sure he'll continue to grow and build and develop. And he's a guy who knows, down the line, if he continues to develop, could certainly be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Next up, we have Offensive Rookie of the Year, and each one of these 5 guys are super deserving for this award. We got Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Bo Nix, and Brian Thomas Jr. And you look back to the 2024 draft class, specifically the offensive side of the ball for those prospects, and there were so many high impact guys that just made a huge difference within their offenses this year as rookies. I mean, you look at these two quarterbacks and how they've been able to change the trajectory of their franchises as a rookie. I mean, it's been nothing short of fantastic for both of those guys, and just shows the importance of getting the right quarterback, when you're team building and trying to get your franchise on track for success. You look at these other 3 guys. Brock Bowers had probably the best rookie season for any pass catcher in NFL history, not just tight ends, but just any pass catcher. He set the record for most catches in a rookie season this year, despite up and down quarterback play. Malik Neighbors, another guy, definitely up and down quarterback play, cycled through about 3 different quarterbacks this year, none of them being very good, and he still put up numbers with every single one of them. Over 1,200 yards this season. I'm sure he'll be an all-pro for years to come for the Giants, and he's an exciting player to look forward to the future for. And Brian Thomas Jr., I think a guy who's easily overlooked sometimes, by the national media, but he ended the year with over 1,300 yards. Another guy who didn't have excellent quarterback play. I mean, Trevor Lawrence did not play his best this year, and he got injured late in the year. And Brian Thomas Jr. still put up numbers with Mac Jones. And no offense, but Mac Jones was subpar this year, to put it nicely. And so, I mean, these five guys are just all had such a great year. And I think in any other year would be slam dunks to be offensive rookie of the year. But it's just crazy that all of these guys happen to have this season at the same time. I mean, that's very rare, in terms of NFL history. And the future is certainly bright for the NFL, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I think looking at these guys, I think the pick has to be Jaden Daniels. I mean, what he is doing is unprecedented. And I know it's easy to get caught up in what he's doing in the playoffs, and this is just a regular season award. But I think even looking at it strictly regular season wise, he was picked at number 2, and so that means the Commanders were the second worst team in the NFL last year. Now he's got them on the brink of the Super Bowl. He got them 12 wins in the regular season, and I know it's not just him. He's got some talent around him, but you think back to some previous rookie quarterbacks who have had success in their rookie years. Ben Roethlisberger with the Steelers, Joe Flacco with the Ravens. Each of those guys took their teams to the conference championship in their rookie seasons. Look at both of their defenses, for those guys respectively. Each of those guys had the number one scoring defenses as a rookie. So they played well, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of it was, hey, just hand the ball off here. Hey, take a screen pass here. Let our defense win the game for us. Don't turn the ball over. You look at Jaden Daniels, he's got the 18th best scoring defense in the NFL right now, the Commanders do. That's not horrible, but that's obviously not even in the top half of the league. And so he has been the main reason, far and away, for this franchise's turnaround. And I think what he is doing is just absolutely unprecedented. The poise that he plays with, the confidence that he has in himself, he is going to be a scary, scary player for opposing teams for years and years to come. And so I think he's for sure the offensive rookie of the year this year. Next up, we got Coach of the Year. Nominees here: Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Dan Quinn. And we've got an interesting group of guys here. Dan Campbell and Andy Reid just leading their teams to another successful year, division title, first round bye. You look at Kevin O'Connell and what he was able to do with Sam Darnold at quarterback, 14 wins, almost 15 at a division title if it wasn't for those Lions. And then you look at Sean Payton and Dan Quinn, and of course we just talked about Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. And the other half of that equation is these two guys right here, their head coaches, in terms of turning around their franchises and what they've been able to do. And I think for me, looking at this list, all of these guys are really intriguing and have a really strong case. And honestly, no matter who wins this award, I am not going to complain. I'm not going to argue, because I think they're all very deserving. Me personally, with what he was able to do, rookie quarterback, calling the plays, I'm going to go Sean Payton here. I think you look at the dead cap money that they had to take whenever they had to cut Russell Wilson, having to have that handicap throughout this entire season, basically not being able to, field, the same type of roster that other teams would be able to, because they're only able to use, like 3/4 of their cap, whereas every other team's allowed to use 100% of it, just because of that Russell Wilson dead cap money. And what he was able to do with Bo Nix, rookie quarterback, the things he was able to do to design that offense to specifically fit Bo Nix's strengths. And there was a little bit of struggles early, but Sean Payton was able to help Bo Nix bounce back. And then the last 2/3 of the season was just tremendous from the Broncos, and they just had a really strong season. I'm interested to see how they grow moving forward. Next up, we have Comeback Player of the Year. Nominees here are Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez, and Damar Hamlin. And this is an interesting award here, because past couple of years we've had guys who have won the award who are not coming off of an injury. We had Geno Smith 2 years ago win the award, who was not injured the previous year. It was just his first year as a starter, after many years as a backup, kind of a comeback story. And then last year, Joe Flacco wins it. Same thing. He wasn't coming on off of an injury. It was just a lot of years of being a backup. Actually was out of the league for a little bit, and came off his couch and led the Browns to the playoffs, which is a great story. But what I've heard, the AP has put out a little bit of rhetoric in terms of this award and how they want people to view this award, and they want it to be an award for players coming off of an injury or an illness or something in that nature, and not an award where guys are just coming off of a season of being on the bench or being, a backup rather than a starter. And so to see Sam Darnold get nominated, I think is really interesting. I think if you look at the old way of the award, Sam Darnold, absolutely, with the way he's been able to resurrect his career, absolutely. But for me, I'm going to go as the AP has intended. and just look at the guys who are coming off of an injury, and that would of course be the rest of these guys: Joe Burrow, J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez. Damar Hamlin didn't have an injury last year, but of course I think we all understand his situation, 2 years ago, and he had a good year this year, so I understand why he got nominated here. I think looking at this list and looking at these guys, I think for me it's going to be Joe Burrow. I mean, he was having an MVP type season. I think he probably would win MVP if his defense was a little bit better and they had had a better overall team record and they had made the playoffs. But of course, individual play can only get you so far. If your team is missing the playoffs, you're probably just not going to win MVP. He did get nominated though, so there of course is a chance, but I don't see that happening. He's not going to win the MVP, I don't think. I think it's basically a two-horse race in that one, but I do think he should win comeback player of the year, coming off of the injury, the hand injury, and having the best year of his career. Of course, he's not, had a super long career or anything, but he's had several really, really good years. And so for him to come off an injury and immediately have his best year of his career, like I said, would have been an MVP year had the defense been a little bit better, had the team had a little bit more success. He's going to be the pick for me here. But I think J.K. Dobbins had a really, really good year coming off of a lot of injuries. I mean, not just one, he's had a lot in the past several years. So for him to be able to bounce back and be healthy this year and have a really good year for the Chargers, that's really promising. And I think if he won the award, I certainly wouldn't be mad about that at all. Christian Gonzalez, same thing, coming off of a big injury, missed most of last year. And now he's had a really, really good year this year, been one of the best corners in the league. And I think a guy who kind of flies under the radar because the Patriots, have just not been very good the past couple of years when he's been there. Their defense, especially this year, has not been very good, but that's not his fault. That's definitely not because of him. If you watch him play, he is one of the best corners in the league. I think if you get him some talent surrounding him, they could have a scary defense in a couple of years. But yeah, comeback player of the year here, it's going to be Joe Burrow. Like I said, I think having an MVP type season, just not able to win MVP based off the team success and things. All right, now we're getting to the three biggest awards here: Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and MVP. So, looking at Defensive Player of the Year here, we've got Zach Bond, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, Pat Surtain, and TJ Watt. And this is an interesting group of guys. We've obviously got all three levels of the defense covered here between three pass rushers, an off ball linebacker, and a corner. So, it's interesting to look at this group here. In years past, this has always been a pass rusher dominated award. Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, especially the last couple of years, have been dominating this award specifically. And I think Myles Garrett probably has had the best year out of all of these guys, but it's so tough for him to win an award like this when your team just performs so poorly. Similar to Joe Burrow in the MVP conversation, I just don't see a way that Garrett can win this award with how poorly the Browns were, as a team and on defense. Of course, he played really, really well, but their defense was not spectacular this year. And so I think that just probably rules him out of the running for this award. I don't know. Defensive Player of the Year isn't exactly the same as MVP. You definitely could see a guy win it, if their team doesn't have as much success, but I don't think Garrett wins this award. Hendrickson obviously obviously plays for the Bengals as well. So he, is in the same boat as Burrow, missing the playoffs. And the Bengals defense is definitely the reason that they missed the playoffs. That's going to be, kind of a knock against Hendrickson that, yes, he led the league in sacks this year and had a tremendous year, maybe the best year of his career. But does he win this award based off of how they played as a team and more specifically how they played as a total defense, in Cincinnati? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. I think you look at TJ Watt, of course, is still TJ Watt, one of the best defenders in the league, but didn't have as good of a year as years prior. Zach Bond is a really interesting one for me. I'm a Saints fan, and he came from New Orleans, and it just did not work out in New Orleans for him. He goes up to Philadelphia and signs with them and fits right into that Vic Fangio scheme and has by far the best year of his career. I mean, he just played so well on the defensive side for them. The leader on that defensive side, wearing the green dot, calling the plays for them defensively. And they had a really good group as a whole defensively. And, him being able to lead that at the middle linebacker position is huge. Had a great, great year. It's really hard for an off ball linebacker to win this award because it's probably the least valuable position on defense. Voters are more so going to look towards pass rushers first, then corners, then they might look at D tackles and off ball linebacker and safety. They kind of get disregarded a little bit. I even saw, talking about the safety aspect, Xavier McKinney tweet out, he was not super thrilled that no safeties got nominated for this award. I think him or Kirby Joseph very easily could have been. Both of them had, I believe Joseph had 9 interceptions. McKinney had 8. Both of them had really good years and definitely could have been nominated for this award. Then you get to Pat Surtain. He had a tremendous year, another great year, led that Broncos defense. Broncos defense was one of the best in the league this season. and he was certainly their best player on that defense when you watch them play. PFF's highest graded corner in coverage this year, and he's just been building on a tremendous career here so far. And he's only in, I believe, his third or fourth year here, so a lot more exciting stuff to come from him. I think for me, it's down to Sertan and Bond, which is interesting because, like I said, pass rusher is definitely the way that this award goes most of the time. And I think Hendrickson deserves a thought here because he did lead the league in sacks and had a great year, but just with how poorly their defense was as a whole, I just don't think he can win this award. I think for me, it's going to be Pat Sertan here. With the way that he was able to just lock down other teams' number one wide receivers, basically just put them on an island. You think back to Darrell Revis and Revis Island. I mean, doing things that guys have not done in a little while. Stephon Gilmore, the last corner to win Defensive Player of the Year. And I think Sertan has had that type of a season here for Denver. And so he's going to be my pick for Defensive Player of the Year here. Next up, we got Offensive Player of the Year here. We've got Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson. So we got the two Ravens, the two Bengals, and Saquon. And this is a really interesting award because the way that this has gone in the past several years, this is basically kind of evolved into the best non quarterback award because the MVP award has just been dominated by quarterbacks for so many years now. I believe Adrian Peterson was the last non quarterback to win the MVP, and that's been 12 years ago now. There was, of course, a strong argument last year from McCaffrey. I think there's a very strong argument from Saquon this year, but with the way these awards go, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be a quarterback. I think it would take a really, really unique, special set of circumstances for a non quarterback to win the award. And I think we just didn't get that this year. I think Lamar and Josh Allen had great years, and so it's going to be one of them too. I think when you look at it, Saquon probably has a case for being the most deserving player for MVP in terms of the impact that he had, but it's just probably not going to happen. So, with the way that I approach this award, I am going to essentially eliminate Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson because I really do treat this as best non quarterback. I think it's not fair to have Lamar or Josh Allen win MVP and then turn right around and have Lamar or Joe Burrow win Offensive Player of the Year. So I'm just going to consider Saquon, Jamar Chase, and Derrick Henry. And all three of these guys had tremendous years this year. And like I talked about with the MVP with Burrow a little earlier, Jamar Chase is kind of in that same boat. They missed the playoffs, didn't have a ton of team success, so it's hard for him to win an award like this, despite having the best year of his early career, having just a tremendous, tremendous year. But I think it's going to be between these two running backs. And Derrick Henry, I mean, with the way that he's been able to play for a running back at his age is unprecedented, especially nowadays. You just don't see that anymore. And the way he's able to take care of himself and still provide such a huge impact and just brought a really just a brand new wrinkle into this Ravens offense that they've never had before, I think was tremendously valuable. But I think this award just has to go to Saquon. I mean, what he did this year is nothing short of spectacular. I mean, just had a tremendous season, one of the best seasons for a running back probably since that Adrian Peterson MVP year in 2012. I mean, the way he was able to lift up this offense, take it to new heights that it had not seen ever under Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. And I'm not saying that, they were a bad offense or anything before, but Saquon just provided an element to this offense that no other player on this earth could have. The season that he had over 2,000 yards rushing, if he had played week 18, who knows, probably ends up beating Eric Dickerson's rushing record. Um, I mean, just had a tremendous, tremendous season. And I think this award absolutely has to go to him. I mean, I love the other candidates on this list, and all of these guys had such great years. But Saquon, like I said, has a strong case to be MVP if it wasn't such a quarterback driven award. And so I think since he's not going to win MVP, I think it's got to be Offensive Player of the Year here for Saquon. All right, lastly, we've got MVP, Most Valuable Player. Nominees here are Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, and Lamar Jackson. Of course, this is the biggest one. This is the one that everybody's going to debate. Legacies are defined in terms of how many MVPs you have. This could get you in or out of the Hall of Fame. I mean, MVP is definitely a huge deal. Looking at this list of guys I talked about previously, I think Saquon has an argument to be the most deserving, but it's just a quarterback driven award. That's the world we're in right now. I do agree quarterback is the most important position on the field. And so naturally, I understand how they're going to win the MVP the vast majority of the time, but it would be cool to see a running back or a receiver win it, just once. But it's probably just not going to happen with the way things are nowadays and the way that the Associated Press votes on these things. So looking, at these guys, I think everybody knows now it's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, and I think both have extremely strong cases. I think this has been the closest MVP race in the last couple of years. I mean, I know 2 years ago between Mahomes and Hurts was pretty close, but I really think this has been one of the closest years in recent history. I've heard Tony Romo suggest on air a couple of times that these guys should be co MVPs. I don't know how to feel about that. I think that just kind of diminishes their accomplishments a little bit. And so I don't know if I love that. But, honestly, if it happens, it happens, because I think both of these guys are just so level in terms of the way they played this year and the amount of impact that they had on their teams. I think this is going to be a really interesting one, and I think people are going to be mad or happy either way. And so I think for me, just looking at the statistics, looking eye test wise, watching these games and watching these guys play, the way these teams play, and the amount of impact that these guys have, for me, it's going to be Lamar Jackson. I think just what he was able to do, how he has been able to evolve as a passer since coming into the league is just spectacular. I mean, you look at his first year as a starter, obviously winning MVP, his first one, and you look at his stats from that year, and you watch some games from that year, and he certainly was a really really good passer. He would not have won MVP if he wasn't. But a lot of that was him making such electric plays in the run game and breaking tackles and juking guys out, scoring all kinds of rushing touchdowns. And you look now, he had a great year running the ball this year. But the reason that he is an MVP candidate is absolutely because of his arm. The way he's been able to throw the ball this year and the way he has been able to step up, even after last year, he won MVP last year, but he is having a way better year this year. And I hope that, we don't get voter fatigue here. I know that has happened a lot, especially just across other sports. You think about guys like LeBron and Michael Jordan. I believe both only ended up with 4 MVPs in their career. Probably each should have ended up with like 8 or 9 based off of how they played and how truly valuable they were to their teams. And I just hope that the voters don't get voter fatigue here and think, oh, we need to vote for somebody different. Lamar won it last year. Like, I think if you look at the season that Lamar had, like I said, just his evolution as a passer, this being the best year of his career, despite the fact that he's already won 2 MVPs, I think is just tremendous. And you could debate a little bit on that. Like his first MVP year was tremendous, but I think this year was better, me personally. And so for me, he's going to be my pick here. I think Josh Allen has had a tremendous year, the best year of his career as well. And so it sucks for him. He hasn't won one yet. And I think he could end up winning this award for that reason. I think you're supposed to be completely unbiased when voting for this, but I think, it's the Associated Press here, and they're going to take storylines into account. They're going to think, how cool of a story it would be for Josh Allen to win his first. It's not as cool of a story for Lamar to go back to back. And so I think Josh Allen could end up winning this award, but I think Lamar had the better year. And for me, that's what it comes down to. The storyline with Josh Allen might be cooler, but Lamar's the more valuable player, the better season. And so for me, he's going to be the pick here. Absolutely. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, hit the comments. If you didn't like this video, disagree with any of my awards picks, please let me know. Provide some reasoning. Maybe we can have a little healthy debate here and there. So hopefully you guys have a great weekend here. Let's enjoy the conference championship games. We've got 2 massive games on Sunday, so hopefully you guys enjoy. All right, have a good one. Peace.